Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Boys and girls, between President Trump's overseas trip, California wildfires, election fraud, migrants on the border, does your news feed have you feeling a little bit like this? I know, right? News is coming a mile a minute, and here's me just trying to stay on top of everything. Almost caught up, too. John, how many posts we got?
10.
Nice. I am working off of the qmap.pub board today. My other board wasn't working, so we're starting over here on post 2467. 21 minutes after the hour of 12, we get this tweet from Donald Trump, who says there is no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California, except that forest management is so poor. Billions of dollars are given each year with so many lives lost, all because of gross mismanagement of the forest. Remedy now or no more Fed payments. I concur. Q takes us back to post 1762 from July 30th. Oddly enough, timestamped 11/11, which is today's date. What happens when California is in serious debt and lost priority aid from the Fed government due to sanctuary status? Illegal, light fires. Declare state of emergency and require billions from Fed. Why did POTUS reject in the past? Sick people, the more you know. Okay, well, Q was calling this out back in July. There were some fires in July too. A particularly big one that was burning for a while in California, and Q was pointing out that they were simply lighting these fires just so that they could claim billions of dollars in emergency funding. And of course, we all know that California is deep in debt. Looks like this is no different. Q says, do you believe in coincidences? How many coincidences before it becomes mathematically impossible? Expand your thinking. And I'm a former California resident myself, and look, I think they've always had poor fire planning, and it doesn't seem like anything's really changed too much. And Q is pointing out a lot of these misdeeds here. Amount of fires in California past 12 months. Amount of fires in California past 10 years. Well, thanks to Stealth RN, who posted this on Twitter. Here's a little graph essentially saying it's 30% up in the last 13 months. So this is a pretty big deal. It looks like it's stepping up big time. And of course, the citizens of California are the ones who end up footing the bill and of course losing their homes and being put in danger. This is a big problem. The date Fed funding cut off from California as a result of violations of sanctuary state city. I believe that would have been Executive Order 13768. That was from back in January 25th of 2017. California budget cuts past 12 months regarding fire and prevention, and this is what it cut. Reduce, eliminate dry brush cleanup, reduce, eliminate tree line cleanup, reduce, eliminate fire break installations, reduce, eliminate chopper flyovers to target high exposure areas, reduce, eliminate population areas, exposure, and fire break safety management, reduce, eliminate use of inmates, correction facilities for highway cleanup and dry brush removal. What is the primary purpose of declaring a state of emergency? Okay, well, you can see that if you don't do all these things, you're going to get more fires, particularly in California, where you're already prone to having them. So the primary purpose of declaring a state of emergency is essentially telling the federal government that you can no longer help yourself. You need help. You need funds. You need the president to help you out. You need the federal government to send you either cash or supplies or whatnot. What determines the size of the Fed payment to a state that has declared a state of emergency? Well, I would assume it's the size of the state. It's probably the size of their economy, their debt, and the size of the emergency, of course, too. What is the current debt of California? I'm not exactly sure where it stands right now, but as of last June, we were like at 1.3 trillion. That's a ton of money. And of course, these guys spend tons of money protecting illegals. And that was exactly why President Trump wanted to cut a lot of that funding. And it looks like President Trump is going to continue to play hardball. You can't keep burning your forest down in order to get more money. And of course, the liberals are not loving that. They think it's a very cruel thing to do. They're probably not very aware of what's going on. Q is holding fast to this argument that they're setting these fires. Q says, the more you know. Q. Well, I think we can all agree that something foul is afoot in California for sure. I'm not exactly sure what it is. There's many of you who have suggested it could be the result of DEW, directed energy weapons. I'm not so sure, but I most certainly would not put it past Governor Jerry Burn It All Down Brown, who incidentally just happens to be out of town. So he's Jerry Out of Town Brown. But he signed this measure back in September. Governor Jerry Brown signs measure allowing utilities to bill customers to pay for wildfire legal costs. California Governor Jerry Brown has signed a measure allowing utilities to bill their customers to pay for future legal settlements stemming from devastating 2017 wildfires. Brown announced Friday he'd signed the bill, which is aimed at preventing bankruptcy for Pacific Gas and Electric Company. The massive utility faces billions of dollars in liability if investigators determine its equipment caused the Tubbs fire that destroyed thousands of homes and killed 22 people in Santa Rosa last year. The measure is the most hotly contested part of a wide-ranging plan to reduce the growing threat of wildfires. The bill also requires investor-owned utilities to harden their equipment so it's less likely to cause fires. It makes it easier to clear dead trees and brush through controlled burns and other means. Okay, well, thanks for passing the buck, Governor, and I want to thank Deplorable Me for posting this on Twitter. Much appreciated. Let's go ahead and move on to the next post for now. 2468. 44 minutes after the hour of 12. Q's talking about the Scaramucci play. Attempt to hire, remove embedded, untrustworthy staffers. And of course, we are talking about Anthony Scaramucci, who had, the equivalent of about 1 quarter in the White House before he was let go, but not before Spicer and Reince Priebus left the White House, and Q was implying in, I think it was a couple videos ago, that was sort of the point. Scaramucci was just there to help kind of get rid of a couple other people. There's a lot of people in this deep state, both left and right, all plugged into all different aspects of the White House, and some of these temps are designed to just get in there and root them out. And it looks like we're referring now to this Matthew Whitaker, temporary AG, as the same kind of situation. Temps can be very dangerous to those who were targeted. Think Whitaker. And then Q says next week, White House optics must remain stable. And it takes us to this ABC link here, a list of officials who have left the Trump administration. This is from back in March of 2018. And we're just going to cruise through some of these. This is David Shulkin, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, H.R. McMaster, National Security Advisor, Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, John McEntee, Personal Aide, Gary Cohn, Director of the National Economic Council and Chief Economic Advisor to the President, Hope Hicks, her most senior title was Communications Director, Rob Porter, White House Staff Secretary, Omarosa Manigault Newman, Director of Communications for the Office of Public Liaison, Dina Powell, Deputy National Security Advisor, Tom Price, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Sebastian Gorka, Deputy Assistant to the President, Steve Bannon, Chief Strategist and Senior Counselor, Anthony Scaramucci, of course, White House Communications Director, Reince Priebus, White House Chief of Staff, Sean Spicer, White House Press Secretary, who also had a pretty tumultuous tenure there, Mike Dubke, White House Communications Director, James Comey, FBI Director, Mike Flynn, National Security Advisor, Sally Yates, Acting Attorney General, and then here were some other notables here: Stephen Goldstein, Josh Raffel, Rick Dearborn, George Sefakis, Ezra Cohen Watnick, Michael Short, Walter Schaub, Vivek Murthy, Angela Reed, Katie Walsh, and Preet Bharara. Okay, so you can see it's been a virtual cleaning of house. Q says many did not leave by choice. Save face and promote MAGA or be exposed. Less than 10. Okay, so I have a feeling, maybe not all of these, but some of these, like the Sebastian Gorka and maybe Steve Bannon even. I shouldn't say I'm so sure on Steve Bannon, but Rex Tillerson, some of these guys, very well, perhaps they were forced to leave and keep promoting the MAGA theme, if you will, in order to save face, and who knows what kind of deals they made, but some of these guys look like they were designed to make sure that others get out, and it looks like A.G. Whitaker is next, so we may see some resignations next week, some firings. I have a feeling they might be more in the form of somebody stepping down or deciding they're not going to run again, or just flat out resigning. We'll see how it goes. Q says less than 10, and I think that is a reference to the actual Q team themselves. Q has said this before in past posts that the Q team is made up of less than 10 people. Attacks occur from all directions. Logical thinking. Why attack a movement simply by design, asking people to think for themselves? Yeah, it's amazing how many people go after QAnon and call us sheep, when the fact of the matter is that we're the ones doing all the research. Everyone else is basically being told, whether it's from the media or being told from somebody else who somehow has this magic expose that's going to bring Q down, but nobody seems to want to ask the question to the president. Nobody seems to want to go public with this Q thing. And you would think if it was just a LARP, it would be pretty easy to disprove if you just brought it out on Front Street, right? Why is the Washington Post leading the attacks? Because they're one of the ones that are directing that narrative. Look, this is owned by Bezos. Bezos is wrapped up in some deep state tomfoolery. This goes back to Common Sense Media, Tom Steyer. There is likely some human traffic organizations through Tom Steyer's organizations. We've done that in past videos before. You can go back a couple months ago and look at some of that. But the Washington Post is leading the charge because they're implicated in a lot of this FISA action too. Remember that these leakers that were leaking the Steele dossier information, of course, it all started off with BuzzFeed and Yahoo and whatnot, but eventually trickled down to Washington Post, New York Times, a lot of these other articles. So we're going to start seeing that as this FISA thing falls apart, we're going to see all these members of the media that were basically collaborating on this and basically kind of rehashing this whole Steele dossier narrative are going to be exposed at some point, and they don't want to see that happen. Why do the attacks come in waves? Because it's easier to do that if everybody looks like they're doing it. That way, it doesn't matter what you read. You're going to figure that Q is some sort of conspiracy theory. Every time I've showed you a QAnon article, they always have to follow it up with the words conspiracy theory. Are they coordinated? Of course they are. It's all the same news conglomerates. Remember, everyone gets their 4 a.m. talking point scripts every single morning, and they go out setting out to do their worst, right? You attack those the most who are the biggest threat. Yeah, I'd say that's the simplest thing to say to any Q doubter, and I think it's fine if you doubt Q. It's no big deal to me. But I would simply say this, and I've maintained it, all along. If Q is really as harmless as it seems, or if Q is really such disinformation, why is everyone going after Q so hard? Why is everyone going after 8chan so hard? Why is everyone going after Q anonymists like myself who have channels that report this stuff so hard? Q says the swamp contains red and blue, and I think we all knew that. This isn't just a Democratic thing. This is a deep state thing, and it's taking a long time to root out. I know a lot of people are impatient for arrest, but it looks like we are getting closer and closer, and as we start to see this election fraud sort itself out, I have a feeling we are going to finally end up with some arrests. Let's move on to post 2469. 52 minutes after the hour of 12, dark to light. Florida and Arizona attempts to steal the elections. Do not look here. California shooting and fire, same locations. Look here next week. Yeah, how about that timing, right? We get this shooting that just oddly enough happened to have a whole bunch of survivors from the Vegas shooting all hanging out without their cell phones, I guess, in a bar that emptied out real quick. Nobody had any cell phone videos. We kind of talked about that yesterday, seeing what looked to be a lot of crisis actors. And then also we get this massive fire. And oddly enough, this is kind of a part of California that tends to be a little bit red leaning. Very interesting. And of course, they want us to look there so that we don't look at this massive attempt to steal the election over here in Florida and Arizona. And let's not forget about Georgia too. Now let me take you over to davidharrisjr.com. Broward County employee swears in affidavit that they saw ballots being filled out in Broward. A former employee who worked for Broward County Election Board said he or she saw election employees filling out blank ballots in large stacks. That fact was revealed by former Florida Lieutenant Governor Jeff Kottkamp in a tweet. And here's the tweet here. Affidavit filed by Broward County elections employee in support of Caldwell lawsuit provides eyewitness account of election staff filling in blank ballots. When this was reported, the employee was fired and told to not come back. It is not clear on whether that happened this year or in 2016. In 2016, a former employee I'm gonna have to back that up, said he or she was fired after she witnessed election workers filling out huge stacks of empty ballots. At that time, Snipes said that they were military ballots that are faxed in that the machines couldn't read. They would then have to be duplicated and the original retained. But what I can't understand is why the employee would be fired for witnessing something that was perfectly legal. But if you remember in 2016, none of the elections were close. And if they were illegally filling out ballots, they would never have used them because no votes were close enough to steal. The lawsuit Kottkamp is referring to is related to Republican Matt Caldwell, the news press reported. Matt Caldwell has followed Governor Rick Scott's lead in filing a lawsuit Friday against the Broward County Supervisor of Elections in one of the state's closest races. The campaign of the Republican candidate for Agricultural Commissioner sent a news release Friday afternoon announcing that his attorneys filed a lawsuit in the 17th Judicial Circuit, asking the court to protect the integrity of all ballots and all public records relating to the election for Commissioner of Agriculture. Caldwell thought he had edged out a victory in the Agricultural Commissioner race Tuesday night when he had about a 40,000 vote lead over Democratic candidate Nikki Fried. But the latest vote count shows Caldwell losing by 120 votes to Fried. The difference between the candidates is 0.04%, signaling an automatic recount and a likely manual recount. And this is from the Federalist. In Palm Beach County, Democrats argue to count votes cast by non-citizens. Something is rotten in Palm Beach County, Florida elections where Democrats want to count votes cast by non-citizens. During review of provisional ballots to determine whether a recount is justified in the tight Florida Governor, Senate, and Agriculture Commission races, Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections Susan Butcher identified a voter as a non-citizen and declared that the ballot would not be counted. Attorneys representing the Democratic candidate for Senate Bill Nelson and the Democratic candidate for Governor Andrew Gillum objected. A copy of the uncertified transcript shows the interaction, and here's the rough draft right here. Chairman of the Palm Beach County Republican Party, Michael Barnett, attests to the validity of the transcript. He told the Federalist that several Republican lawyers and party officials heard the back and forth between the canvassing board and attorneys from the Gillum and Nelson campaigns. I would think this is something we could all agree on, that non-citizens shouldn't vote, but evidently that's not the case with Democrats, Barnett said. It's really sad that we were having to deal with this in a close election. It just goes to show the depths they will go in order to win. Okay, so I think we see what's up, right? Everybody who lost their important seats is now crying foul, and all of a sudden all these ballots are showing up everywhere. And these guys want to count far after the deadline, right? And this Gillum race, of course, was a very important race to the Democrats. So, of course, they're crying foul. And we kind of predicted this beforehand. Q says next week, hopefully we'll start to get some closure on some of this so we can start moving forward. I'd like to see this Brenda Snipes get arrested. After all, she's in clear violation, not turning over these ballots. This is very strange. The Arizona story is very strange. And of course, we've got, Georgia and Mississippi, Alabama. It's just an absolute mess. So I think we'd like to see some resolve here. President Trump seems to be very aware of it. He's been tweeting incessantly about this. And of course, President Trump always kind of gives sort of these why questions, but he knows exactly what's up too. So hopefully we will start to see some closure here and hopefully some arrests. Let's move on to 2470. 4 minutes after the hour of 1 a.m. When did White House leaks cease? Who was removed? Well, we saw all the people that were removed, right? Heinz Priebus, and of course Steve Bannon, H.R. McMaster, Rex Tillerson, Scaramucci, all these guys. Tons of people were removed. Now, when did the leak cease? I'm not exactly sure exactly, but I know that Jeff Sessions kind of called this task force back in August. And of course, Chief of Staff John F. Kelly was just a month before in July, and that to me kind of seemed like when it stopped. Who was removed? Tons of people were removed. Sealed, unsealed. So do we have some unsealed indictments coming next week? I'd like to think so.
I want a Whopper with the extra sauce. Give me them sesame seed buns. I want some pickles. I want cheese on top of cheese. I want fat on top of fat.
Oh, dude, you're making me hungry. 2471, 24 minutes after the hour of 1 a.m. Now, I saw this the other day on 8chan, and I plucked it, thinking that I was going to use it, and I didn't end up using it in yesterday's video, but Q ended up posting it today. How interesting. And these are all a bunch of connections to some different terrorist attacks in regards to Broward County, Nicholas Cruz, Caesar Psyop, Mohammed Atta, Rais Alam, and Shahriar Alam Kazi, Jose Padilla, Imran Farouk Mandai, Sami Al-Arian, James Gonzalo Medina, and then officials and agents in Broward County, Scott Israel, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and David Hogg. He's not an official. All right, well, you see what's up. Q says expand further and gives us this link to the Tampa Bay Times, prominent terror cases with ties to Florida. And I'm just going to cruise through some of these here. This goes back to September 11, 2001. Adnan El Shukri Juma was wanted by the FBI as a suspected Al-Qaeda combatant due to his possible connection with the September 11 hijackers. Here are a couple more. Mohammed Atta and Marwan Al-Shahi. And here's a couple more. A Saudi family that left their Sarasota home weeks before September 11th had ties to those associated with the terrorist attacks, according to FBI reports. Then we have one from 2003, Sami Al-Arian. November 22nd, 2005, Jose Padilla. 2007, Ahmed Mohammed and Youssef Megahed. November 28, 2007, Rafiq Sabir, a doctor who had lived west of Boca Raton, was sentenced to 25 years in prison after being convicted of conspiring to help and treat injured Al-Qaeda fighters. May 2009, 5 men were convicted in Miami on charges of conspiring to start a war against the United States by planning attacks in places including the Sears Tower and the federal buildings in Florida. So you see what's up, a whole bunch more going all the way down. And the last one looks to be 2016, but there's lots of connections here in Florida. And of course, we already know about creepy Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her fancy little laptop that she was fighting so hard to keep. We've got a lot of creepy ties to Florida. David Hogg, the Parkland shooting, and his whole cast of Glee. As a matter of fact, one of the fathers of one of the boys that was involved in that shooting, he was in trouble with a adoption agency that he ran out of Florida too. A lot of adoption agencies have had problems with Florida. Now, if you have not seen this video, I would implore you to do so. This is a video I made back in, looks like June 10th, entitled In Pursuit of Truth Presents Connecting a Crisis. And I would really love it if you could watch this. It's about a 40-minute video. And this talks a lot about the human trafficking problem in regards to particularly Haiti and their connections with the shipping industry and going all the way into these families that work in the Florida area. And this is really important to know. That's why this is such a hotbed in Florida, because there's a massive human trafficking ring running in and out of there. And of course, that's a big part of what the deep state is trying to do. And we know that on the other end, on the West Coast in California too. And that's why we're seeing so many problems on both ends here. But clearly, Broward County is very, very fishy, right? And now we have all this election fraud going on in Broward County. Clearly something up, right? I think it's about time to investigate the county. It's about time to investigate this Scott Israel. It's definitely time for Debbie Wasserman Schultz to go. And I don't know why they listed David Hogg as official. He's not official anything other than official tool. But there you go. Let's move on. Post 2472, 56 minutes after the hour of 1 a.m. We get this link right here. Q says, we knew then, we know now. This time, we have government control. Boomerang suicide Q. And it takes you to this link right here, which is an affidavit from 2016 from a Chelsea Smith. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but let me read some of it because it's very interesting. And I'm sorry if this is a little blurry here. I was employed through a temporary employment agency, K-Force, and was working full-time at the Broward County Supervisor of Elections, hereinafter SOE, main office in Lauderhill, Florida. My duties included clerical work as well as delivering various items as needed throughout the office. My regular hours were from 8 a.m. until approximately 9 p.m., depending on the need. As an employee, I regularly clocked in and out of work as required. As part of my regular duties, I frequently handled absentee ballots, including time stamping, registering new voter residences, and sorting and delivering ballots to various sections of the SOE headquarters. One of my supervisors, Dozel Spencer, had reviewed the various ballots with me as part of my training. As such, I am very familiar with the appearance of those ballots. On 10/31/16 at about 8:30 p.m., I was instructed by my supervisor, Charlotte Shipman Smith, to carry a stack of absentee ballot request forms to another room in the building, which they referred to as the Pitney Bowes room. I had never previously been asked to go to that room. When I got to the room, I found that the entrance door was locked and required a security number to gain entrance. I was never provided with that security number, so I could not enter on my own. The door has a long, thin window which was uncovered. Although I knocked several times, the people inside were too busy to notice. Through the door window, I could clearly see 4 SOE employees sitting at a table with stacks of documents and writing something. Eventually, one of the employees opened the door, took the ballots from me, and closed the door. I was not let into the room, and the employee seemed very rushed. From the door window, I was unable to determine what documents were on the table. I then returned to my regular workplace. I was then asked to deliver another stack of absentee ballot request forms to the same room. Once again, the employees initially ignored my knocking. I looked through the door window and could clearly see 4 SOE employees sitting at a table. Each person had a stack of documents next to them on one side and another stack on the other side, and they were all writing something on each document. Eventually, an employee opened the door for me and in a very hurried pace allowed me in the room and told me to place my ballots on a different table. Once in the room, I could see the 4 SOE employees sitting at the same table actively filling out election ballots. Each had a stack of blank ballots to the right of them, about an inch high, and a stack of completed ballots to their left. There were perhaps a dozen in each completed stack. I could see that the bubbles on the right stack had not been filled in, while the bubbles on the left stack had been blackened in. I could also see the employees filling in the bubbles as they moved for ballots from right to left. I witnessed this activity for over a minute. I could see that the SOE employees were using the same black pens, white body with a black cap, that the SOE supplies to voters at the polling sites. I was then told to leave the room by one of the employees at the table. I completed other duties in another section of the building and left about 30 minutes later. When I arrived home, I told my mother, Michelle Castellanos, what I had seen. I was initially frightened to report this activity to anyone at the SOE for fear of retaliation. Yeah, I don't blame you. The following day, I reported for work at the same office at 9 a.m., performed my regular duties, and took my lunch break at the regular time. When I returned from lunch at 12:30, I was met by a uniformed security guard at the SOE entrance and told that I had been terminated and was forced to immediately turn over my SOE credentials. I was warned that I was no longer welcomed in the SOE building and that I should never return. I was given no explanation for this action. I was able to determine the identity of some of the SOE employees using the Facebook site for the SOE office. The employee was Mary Hall. I recognized Miss Hall from a group picture of SOE employees which is posted on the SOE Facebook page. I had also seen photographs of Mary Hall with her name on the walls of the SOE building. Finally, Mary Hall's Facebook page lists her employment with the SOE office. Thus, I can say I saw Mary Hall, an SOE employee, sitting at the table in the Pitney Bowes room, actively completing ballots with an SOE pen and placing them into a stack. Mary Hall was also the employee who told me to leave the room. I am executing this affidavit freely and voluntarily. I have not been pressured or enticed in any manner to provide this testimony. I am willing to fully cooperate with law enforcement in the investigation and prosecution of this matter. How about this from this Chelsea Marie Smith, when we need to wrap her up in bubble tape and make sure we put her in protective custody, because this is very important. Now, this was back, looks to be November 3rd, so about a year ago, 2016, this affidavit. Q says, we knew then, we know now. This time we have government control. Boomerang suicide. Yeah, this time we've got hold of the Senate. And it looks like probably a lot more stories are going to come out as they let this fraud play out this year too and make everybody all worked up over this. Finally, we can hopefully drop some bombs and hopefully drop some arrests. But a boomerang suicide, meaning that the more the left complains about, they're complaining about the right cheating. So as they throw that boomerang, it's going to come right back to them. And it looks like Q has some ammo there. So very exciting stuff. And hopefully that'll see the light day, and hopefully this Chelsea Smith will stay safe. Let's move on to 2473. 10 minutes after the hour of 3, we get this Twitter link right here. And this is to the status of USM Cannon, who said, Real Donald Trump supporters are all stupid and uneducated. We are from every walk of life. Semper Fi, Marines. Happy birthday, 243rd. And look at that beautiful family right there. Let me see if I can close in. I've got a couple cutie patooties right there, and he's all in his dress uniforms, just adoring them right there. How cute is that? Q says, we thank you for your service, Patriot. May God watch over you and your family for all eternity. Hashtag Semper Fi. So happy 243rd to some of my favorite people on the planet, the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah! Thanks for your service. As a matter of fact, to all you veterans, thank you so much for everything that you've given to this country. I only hope that we can honor you in return someday. And of course, we've also got Armistice Day being celebrated, 11/11, quite a day. As a matter of fact, I would say, what a wonderful day. Hey, side note, you want to know what Marine stands for? My ass rides in Navy equipment. That's a true story. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. You're some of my favorite people. Come on. Hoorah! Let's move on. Post 2474. 24 minutes after the hour of 3, we get this screenshot from the Associated Press. And doesn't seem to be anything particular in the news except for this little shot here. Press ganged into service. Animals were vital cogs in World War I and died by the millions. Okay, well, it's Armistice Day. We're talking about the end of World War I, and they're talking about animals dying in World War I. And look at this header. It's a whole bunch of sheep. Wait a minute. Are you calling us sheep? Hey, I'm no sheep. I'm one bad man. This is shot at 2:02 p.m. and I suppose if you counted it with 1 like that, 1 over here, you'd have 11. How about that? Well, we are sheep no more. American Patriots United. Fight, fight, fight. Yeah, I hate to break it to you knuckleheads, but the rise of independent journalism is taking over, and we are sheep no more. So we appreciate the condescending tone, but I'm going to take a pass on you, AP. How about that?
Catch me outside. How about that?
Yeah, how about that? Well, this is a tail end of a Q post from March 18th, post 953. Election theft. Last hope. Congressional focus. Impeach. They think you are stupid. They think you will follow the stars. They openly call you sheep, cattle. There will come a time none of them will be able to walk down the street. Biggest fear, public awakening. And that's exactly what the Q movement really has been. It wasn't just about Q themselves. It was about us. It's about us doing open source research for ourselves. It's about us scouring the internet, scouring documents, learning a little bit about civics again, teaching others, awakening others. And that's exactly what they feared, because they assumed that we were sheep, cattle all this time. And they even go so far as to put it on their header of their news site to show us that they think we're sheep and cattle, because they think we're going to follow the stars. And of course, we realize that these Hollywood knuckleheads don't know a damn thing about our lives. They sit there in their ivory towers with their walled houses and their armed guards telling us how to live. And that's exactly what they feared. And it looks to me like this election theft is now the last hope. So we are seeing the last ditch effort, the last Hail Mary of the deep state, and we just got to get through it. And once that happens, hopefully we can finally come to a mass public awakening that will unify the country. Let's move on. Post 2475, 36 minutes after the hour of 3. Q takes us back to a post 1197 from April 19th, where Anon asks, will election fraud be revealed soon? Q says yes, midterms are safe. Watch California. And of course, we had a whole mess in California. We've got the fires going on in California. We've got the shooting in California. And then, of course, in nearby Arizona, we've got the mess over there. West Virginia, Florida, Georgia, Alabama. My goodness, Montana. It's just a mess everywhere, right? So midterms didn't really look very safe, do they? Q says news unlocks. Well, like I said, President Donald Trump is well aware of this, and he's been tweeting up a storm about this. Let me take you back to November 9th and read you some of these tweets here. You mean they're just now finding votes in Florida and Georgia, but the election was on Tuesday? Let's blame the Russians and demand an immediate apology from President Putin. As soon as Democrats sent their best election-stealing lawyer, Mark Elias, to Broward County, they miraculously started finding Democrat votes. Don't worry, Florida, I am sending much better lawyers to expose the fraud. Jeff Flake, E, doesn't want to protect the non-Senate confirmed special counsel. He wants to protect his future after being unelectable in Arizona for the crime of doing a terrible job. A weak and ineffective guy. I find it pretty interesting that he quoted crime there. Rick Scott was up by 50,000 votes. 50,000 plus votes, on election day. Now they found many votes, and he is only up 15,000 votes. The Broward effect. How come they never find Republican votes? Mayor Gillum conceded on election day, and now Broward County has put him back into play. Bill Nelson conceded election. Now he's back in play. This is an embarrassment to our country and to democracy. So you can see what's up. He was tweeting like crazy about this. He's obviously aware of it. And I can't help but wonder that POTUS being overseas might be even for his own safety, not just to simply celebrate Armistice Day. But we definitely have a very significant day today, 11/11, the Great Awakening. 243rd birthday of the Marines Veterans Day. It's a big deal for America. So hopefully POTUS will stay safe and we can get some enlightenment going on today. Let's move on to the last post, 2476, 1 minute after the hour, 4 a.m. Q takes us back to this drop from January 19th. I'm not going to go through all of this, but all these names here, Loretta Lynch, Clinton, James Comey, Clapper, all these names here were ones that were communicating through these Gmail comms. Now, if you don't know what Gmail comms are, obviously Google comms, what they were doing is they were using draft comms. So one person would type in an email but never click send, just leave it as a draft. Now, this whole crew had that same email password, knucklehead@gmail.com, and they could log in at any time and read that draft, but nobody ever clicked send, and that's how they would send their quote-unquote secret spy ninja messages. This back half talks about Eric Schmidt and Edward Snowden setting up servers out there in North Korea. That was sort of their deep state network out there that was supposed to circumvent the NSA. Then we get this post 1891 from August talking about text, emails, Gmail drafts, like I just explained, ham comms. Remember, Bruce and Nellie Orr. Nellie had a ham radio license. She was communicating with Christopher Steele. Then we talk about PlayStation, Xbox chat logs. And then these were some of the people that were talking through them, whether that was James Comey. I'm assuming that would be Bruce Orr, Christopher Steele, Loretta Lynch. Number 2 was Andrew McCabe, Nellie Orr, Sally Yates. Bonus round. And then we get this Twitter link right here to one of my guys, Dan Bag of Donuts Bongino. Well, isn't this interesting? Comey has sensitive FBI emails on private Gmail account. No, right? James Comey's even laughing at how dumb that sounds. At least 7 messages on former FBI Director James Comey's private Gmail account were so sensitive that the Department of Justice declined to release them. The New York Post exclusively obtained 156 of 1,200 pages of messages in which the former FBI Director and his Chief of Staff, James Rybicki, discussed government business. DOJ refused to hand over 7 of the messages because they disclosed techniques and procedures for law enforcement investigations or prosecutions. Another 363 pages were withheld because they contained privileged FBI communications or out of personal privacy concerns. Okay, so this talks about all these messages from back in 2015, 2016. We already kind of knew this. Let me take you to this one here. July 25th, 2016. Comey apparently emailed Rybicki a link to a Lawfare article questioning what the U.S. government knew about Russia and the DNC hack, writing, "I suspect there will be more of these kinds of stories." Okay, so you see what's up. We've been talking about this for a while, thanks to Dan Bongino, who does a lot of great work every day over there, but we've known about these comms, okay? So you've got Comey, McCabe, Rybicki on their Gmail comms. You got Nellie on the ham radio. And then meanwhile on the Xbox, you got yourself No Name McCain, John Brennan, selling missiles to Muaz Mustafa while playing Call of Duty. And they're like, hey, it's your turn to go. And by the way, do you want to buy some medium-range missiles? You see what's up, right? Q says dig deeper. Reread drops regarding Gmail plus Xbox, PlayStation comms. There's a reason why directly after the drop, Microsoft shut down their entire network to erase collected and stored data. Okay, and for those who don't know, Q dropped this a while back talking about Xbox, and that same day, literally within the hour, Xbox shut down all over the country. We were reporting blackouts. It was a really big deal, and they were freaking out. And of course, that's Microsoft. Microsoft likely hosting a lot of these servers, probably wrapped up in this too, so they had to go ahead and cover their bums. Collected and stored data, erasing all that. So they had to shut it down. People couldn't game, people couldn't play anything because they were erasing all this data, all these comms that they use in these in-game chats. That's where a lot of these people were communicating. These guys are so stupid. Well, Q Team seems to have it all. Nothing like that gets past the NSA. And that was one of the things that Edward Snowden was warning the deep state about. And of course, he came out acting like he was sort of an American hero, saying that to the rest of us as if he was warning us. But what he was really doing was warning the deep state of how their comms were getting collected. And Q says sometimes people need to see the future in order to save the past. Okay, kids, those are your Q posts. Let me leave you with this from today. This is off a Hawar News Agency. Attempt to assassinate Macron aborted. French security forces aborted an assassination attempt against French President Emmanuel Macron and arrested 6 people. French media said French police foiled a plan to assassinate French President Emmanuel Macron. According to the French media, the French police arrested 6 people believed to be from the extreme right against the background of the case, of course. So it doesn't look like there's much here. I saw a couple articles regarding it, and a lot of them I couldn't get in. For some reason, I was blocked, or they were trying to give me some sort of malware or something like that. It was very, very strange. And I also want to leave you with this from Fox News. Trump takes heat over scrap trip to cemetery in France. The White House and President Trump took some heat on Saturday after it was announced that he would not make a previously scheduled visit to a cemetery in France for Americans killed in World War I due to inclement weather. Trump arrived in France on Friday to mark the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, along with First Lady Melania Trump. They planned to visit Anon American Cemetery in Below, France. The president was expected to lay a wreath and observe a moment of silence. The first couple was supposed to travel to the site via helicopter, according to The Hill, but the White House released a statement saying the visit had been called off. The President and First Lady's trip to Anon American Cemetery and Memorial has been canceled due to scheduling and logistical difficulties caused by the weather, the statement said. An American delegation led by Chief of Staff General John Kelly and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Joe Dunford will attend on their behalf. The decision drew negative reactions from 2 officials who served in previous administrations. David Frum, a speechwriter for former President George W. Bush, took to Twitter to slam the move, insisting that other transportation accommodations could have been made in case of poor weather. And here he's talking about it, saying it's not even 60 miles from central Paris to the monument. If the weather is too wet and windy for helicopters, a presidential motorcade could drive the distance in an hour. Okay, so something seems very kind of fishy about this. I'm not really sure. This David Frum's really going off. And of course, it's another reason to bag on President Trump. Ben Rhodes here says, I helped plan all of President Obama's trips for 8 years. There's always a rain option, always. Well, that is true. There is always a rain option. So it seems to me like there would be another reason for not going to this cemetery trip, which is a normal trip, which honestly, that cemetery, by the way, is actually funded by American taxpayer dollars, in case you didn't know that. But yeah, I found this very fishy, especially considering this story with Macron. So hopefully our POTUS is safe over there. Looks like General Kelly took his place, probably wanted to go ahead and crack some skulls over there and see what was up. But there you go. So hopefully our president will stay safe. That is all I got for you today, boys and girls. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who are already doing that. I greatly appreciate it. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please keep in mind that you will be from time to time unclicked, unliked, and unsubscribed. That's just a little game that we play with social media. All right, my links are down below. My Gab, my BitChute. I am not yet on Gab. Please understand that I'm having a little bit of a private issue with Gab, and I'm still trying to resolve it. But if I can get that resolved, I will let you guys know, and I will be back posting there. But I'm on BitChute. I am on Real.video, which is now called Brighteon.com. If you want to see me over there, Brighteon.com. The link is down below. And of course, I'm over here on Twitter a lot, running my mouth at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. Also, my email, my P.O. box. And if you'd like to support my channel, my Patreon link is down below too. Okay, kids, this is Sir Patrick Mack. Enjoy your 11/11. And until next time, stay free.